We're here today because we had our educational assistance fund frozen. We have already received one allotment on our educational assistance. We came today to pick up our second allotment, and we were told that our fund was frozen, that we will not receive the allotment, and before we received any more, there would have to be some matters cleared up.
Had you been aware prior to today that the money was frozen and that you would not receive it?
There was some question before of the funds being frozen, but the last information that I had was Thursday, the 24th, and we were assured that we would get at least this month's allotment, and then there would be a 30-day time period there where some kind of relief or some kind of remedy could be developed.
All these lovely young ladies you see gathered around me will be setting programs and doing just about everything else here that's necessary to make the Raymond E. Holly track meet the best track meet we've had yet. The Holly track meet is one of the oldest track meets here in the Dallas area. And I had a chance to talk with Coach Ramirez of Pinkston High School and also Coach James of Roosevelt High School.
The Raymond E. Holly track and field meet started back in the early 50s between Lincoln and Booker T. Washington High School. Started off as the Lincoln and Washington Invitational. When Madison came into existence in 1956, they changed the name to the Tri-High Invitational. And in 1966, some of the coaches thought it would be a fitting honor to name this meet for Raymond E. Holly, one of the outstanding football and track coaches in the state. As a matter of fact, he won more state championships in track than any other man.
Coach Ramirez, would you tell us a little bit about your mile relay team this year? I understand you have a pretty good one.
Well, it's coming along pretty good. We ran in Houston the other day about a 3:17, and we're getting along pretty well. Trying to beat that record, so we're trying to do right now.
All right, in the meet coming up Saturday, which is the Raymond E. Holly track meet, the highlight of the meet will be the mile relay team, the mile relay event. Who do you think will be your strongest competition?
Well, the strongest competition is just like it's been all the time. Roosevelt over here has got one of the better mile relay teams, and they're going to be coming around pretty well. And Sock's got it, South Oak Cliff, that is.
How many teams are you expecting?
Well, there'll be about 13 teams here in high school division, and they might bring their sophomore division up here too.
I think the idea at the time that the board, DCYC Inc. Board of Directors took this action was that they thought that the unexpended funds were going to be recallable by OEO. In the past, such unexpended funds has been recallable by OEO. This year is the only year that I can recall where we were allowed to keep our unexpended funds. On January 17th, the DCYC Board of Directors, in the effort to spend those unexpended funds, selected to freeze the educational, recreational, and job training funds to go back into the DCYC Association General Funds.
Jim, I think it's a little too early to expect that we could slow down the rate of inflation that was prior to the stabilization program. I would think by late spring is the earliest that we really could start to see figures that are significant in showing the rate of progress we're making. I think it's a little too early to expect it right now.
Those in the Treasury Department anticipate a rate of 3 or 3.5% by year end. Is that realistic?
Well, we're firmly aiming for 2.5% by the end of the year. But now overall for the year, that should come out to be 3 to 3.5.
How long is phase 2 going to last?
For as long as it takes to get the rate of inflation to 2 to 3%. We don't work on a calendar date, and some people have asked me, Jim, will it be before the election, after the election, next year? We're not setting a calendar date. We're setting a target, and we're going to make that target, and then, and only then, will the controls be lifted.
There are some construction management people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who feel firmly that as surely as we will never go back on the gold standard, we will never see the end of controls.
There are a lot of people who ask that question, and my view is that my job is to get the rate of inflation down. That's a firm determination on the part of myself and every commission. After that, it's the decision of the President and the Congress as to whether or not any control program should be continued.
Dallas County taxpayers are faced with a big dilemma. $60,000 and more of the taxpayers' money is going to support of foster children for sometimes an indefinite period of time as their court battle is waged for their permanent custody. Children like these playing behind me and many more, some 200 more, are faced by the county with this problem. Children can't vote. They have little say in their future. All they know is they don't have a family of their own, and it's hard for them to understand why. Whose fault is it? It's hard to say. I talked to a woman directly involved in this, State and County Child Welfare Director, Mary Yarborough.
Of course, we have a law here in Texas that children have to be abandoned by their parents for a period of 2 years. And then also there's not any set limit as to when there has to be some decision as to whether or not a child could be freed for adoption or whether or not they would return to their parents. So this does involve a great length of time.
Whose fault is this? The court system?
Well, it's difficult to say whose fault it is. I think it's the Child Welfare Agency, the court system, the district attorney, maybe the lawyers in town, the parents, the children. I don't think any one person could be said to be at fault.
Obviously there is a problem. I talked to State Representative Sam Coates, who's done much for adoption legislation. I asked him where the problem lies and what can be done about it from a legislative angle.
I think it's too long a period to have a child in limbo, and that's what they are during that period, and I'd like to see it cut back to no more than a year and possibly back to 6 months, so that after 6 months or no more than a year, the child would be ready for adoption and permanent placement.
Can you do anything about this, or would you be willing to at a special session?
This is a topic that has been discussed in recent months. In fact, there's an increasing amount of interest about it, and I would hope that during the next special session, the governor would open the call of the session to allow us to introduce legislation to correct the waiting period, to shorten it.
Mrs. Cheryl Nichols of Dallas has been a foster mother of 3 children for 4 years. Although Texas adoption laws stipulate that if the child is abandoned by his natural parents for 2 years, he may be eligible for adoption. However, Dallas County child welfare agents have been fighting for 4 years through loaded court dockets and legal entanglements for permanent custody of the 3 children. Mrs. Nichols told me of the heartbreak of waiting to know if her 3 foster children can ever be her own.
It's gone on, and it's just living in a nightmare. It's hard on my husband and myself, but harder on the kids. Every day they talk about what they do if their real parents came and got them who mistreated them so, how they would escape, how they'd find their way back to us, and so on, what they do. They don't play games like normal children do because this is on their minds. That's what they think about. They worry about it all the time. A couple years ago on Mother's Day, they make homemade Mother's Day cards for us that I just treasure, and things that say that you're the best mother I could ever have, and things like that. Anyhow, they gave my husband Father's Day cards on Mother's Day. And I said, well, why did you do that? And they said, because we don't know if we'll still be here on Father's Day. We need help. We need someone that can straighten out this mess and let us all relax, let these children lead normal lives, and us be able to love them and raise them and keep them.
Ask you also, what of your own shopping? Do you find for your own income that prices are about the same? Or? About the same. So in general, you think most of it is different. How about your own shopping in the grocery store? Do you notice whether your own personal shopping bill recorded in those books that the drugstore maintains? This way you can find out.
Mrs. Nichols, how long have you been a foster mother?
4 years. We have 3 foster children.
When bills pass the House almost unanimously, as these bills do, in a special session, it has been a standard operating procedure for the Senate to floor report bills. And as I said, I believe I'm correct, there were either 46 or 47 bills passed in identically the same way. Now, whether the legislature should have been more informed about the Sharp bills, everybody's got 20/20 hindsight. Yes, they should have perhaps made a very, very thorough investigation. But again, not that the members of the legislature need any defense, but almost every member of the House and Senate voted for those bills. And they voted for them in good faith, believing that they were good for the people of Texas, not because of the fact that they wanted to help Mr. Frank Sharp, because 99% of the members of the legislature had never heard of Frank Sharp.
The operation was a computer franchise. Initially, you paid a $4,000 cash investment, $6,000 within 2 weeks, and the remaining $10,000 by March the 24th. Now, for this, you received a franchise, one of 15,000 of which they plan to put across the nation. The services franchise supposedly offered was investment counseling, budget counseling, tax service to the members, discount buying. One of their examples was they were going to buy 3 million cars next year for their members at a discount. And the list goes on and on and on from one central computer bank.
That franchise sounds like a pretty good idea. What's criminal about it?
Well, the criminal thing, it's an attempt to commit theft by a false pretext for the value of $50. Now, a conspiracy either, this could be termed a conspiracy also.
Well, how do you know that they didn't really plan to put in such a computer?
Well, of course, this is what our district attorney is going to attempt to prove.
Judge J. Neil Daniel opened court this morning with an apology. He'd hoped to have a jury panel by 10 a.m., but as he said, last night we got to the point where we were just about exhausted. The 30 prospective jurors that have already been qualified were sent home to return tomorrow, and the questioning process resumed to find the total 48. Not everybody's mind is completely on jury selection, however. Governor Preston Smith, who's been subpoenaed to appear as a witness in this trial, is making a television address tonight. Speculation as to the content of that speech and the effect on this trial has everybody playing a guessing game, including Channel 8's Phil Reynolds.
The speculation is involved in what effect the governor's speech in a few minutes will have on the trial here. Speculation says that perhaps he'll call a special session immediately, which would interrupt the trial, but that's not necessarily true according to lawyers. They point to Article 3, Section 14 of the Texas Constitution, which says, "Senators and representatives shall, except in cases of treason, felony, or breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest." But two of the defendants here are senators or representatives, but they are involved in a felony. Preston Smith and Ben Barnes, who have been subpoenaed to appear here, are not senators and representatives. Lawyers say it won't make any difference. The trial will go on anyway. This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Taylor County Courthouse.
Barnes said he doesn't feel the subpoena means anything. He pointed out that he was subpoenaed by the defense to testify on behalf of Mutscher, not against him. Then Barnes took time to give what is considered by many of the newsmen attending the press conference the most severe blast to date against Preston Smith concerning his scheduled 30-minute political speech tonight.
I think it's very difficult for Governor Smith to explain the fact that he sold his stock for several points more than what it was selling for. He says it was a normal business investment. Well, it was not a normal business investment because he sold his stock not through a broker, but in a sale arranged by Mr. Frank Sharp at the Sharpstown Bank, and I believe it was 6.5 or 7 points more than a member of the public could sell theirs for that day, because they would have had to sell theirs through a broker at what the market price was. So I will watch with interest his explanation, or his additional explanation of his role in the Sharpstown Bank scandal.
Well, I think Governor Smith will announce the special session.
I think that Governor Smith's got to call a special session, and I'm sure that he's going to go ahead and at least, I don't know that he'll mention a date, because I don't think he'll call a special session till this trial's over. But I'm sure that he's probably going to say tonight that we're going to have a special session in the immediate future, and that I'm going to call it as soon as the Mutscher trial's over.
Barnes said the governor for the past 4 years has only been a ceremonial head of state, to the point of embarrassing the whole state of Texas, in his opinion. Several hundred students attended his talk in the TCJC gymnasium following the news conference. Barnes was one of 4 featured speakers during Texas Independence Day observance here on the campus. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.